Welcome back, everybody, to the What Worked For Me podcast. Today we have Elise. I'm excited to talk with her. She's lost 100 pounds. She's a coach herself. She has a gym in Bountiful, Utah. She's an IFBB pro. Elise, thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Alrighty. So we had a quick chance to talk before the show started, and you say you got all the way up to 230 pounds. Did you start off as a bigger person, or did you gain weight later in life? How did you find yourself up at 230 pounds?
I had a couple moments in life where I experienced extreme stress, and so then I had some fluctuations. But I've always been an athlete my entire life, so I've always used activity to, I needed to move my body. I always had so much energy, so if I don't move my body enough, like I can't sleep. And so I never knew as a child that I had ADHD, but I used activity in a large portion to manage it without knowing it. It was just natural, and that's what felt good. And I had the energy. So, and I loved sports. I started 13. My brother used to sneak me into the high school gym, and that's where I first started with weights. It was at 13 years old. And I lifted for a different purpose. At that time, it was to support, just being strong for sports. And didn't have a whole lot of direction at the time back then. Didn't have what's available to so many people today on a large scale. So I relied on my brother and his friends and
Right.
maybe three that could have
The
gone
best
horribly
information,
wrong.
right? High
Yeah.
school gym information.
Yeah.
What sports were you training for?
I trained for basketball, fast pitch, and soccer.
Okay,
Mm.
so you played a couple different sports.
Yeah, I played competitively, fast pitch. I didn't continue in college. I went and focused on music then, but I continued to be active. Still went to the gym. Still exercised. Participated first couple years in college in ROTC, and we had workouts every morning, like at 5 a.m. So like activity was always an important part of my life, and I kept that even when didn't have a sports team to belong to. And later is when I really got into bodybuilding. And so to answer your first question, I this last time when I had gained so much of that weight, the bulk was it came through incredible stress in my personal life and business life. I got my pro card in women's physique division in 2017. 2018 I opened a gym with my husband, and
I've
we
never heard that term. I like that.
I just learned it this last week from one of my
Nice.
friends, so it's gonna probably take the world by storm now because I
I
just
like that.
prefer it.
So
Yeah.
let's stop. So
Hmm.
I think I feel like we jumped a little bit. So you
Okay.
said
Great.
all up through high school and college you were really fit, right?
Yeah.
I assuming you didn't have much excess weight then if you were in ROTC and doing
Yeah. There was a period of time. I went on a mission to Chicago, and we tracked it. We walked like so much, but it just wasn't to the intensity level that I
right.
needed. So I did gain some weight there too, and I just figured, in the name like of
Yeah.
what I was doing, it was
How much
fine.
weight did you gain in the mission field?
Not too, it wasn't 200, it wasn't over 200 pounds. At the time, I also didn't have as much muscle mass as I have now. So my regular was around 130, and I gained about 50 pounds, was swinging
As a
between like
missionary?
175 and 180 as a missionary. Yeah.
Okay, so you kind of
So I've
first
had
the
some,
experience is shifting away from all of a sudden you don't have sports, you don't have all that extra activity, and
mm,
you're probably still eating. And then also it's hard as a missionary, you don't have a lot of control over your food environment. Um,
right.
right, so you kind of have to eat what people give you. So you gained
Yeah.
about 50 pounds in that 2 year period. So you're
Mhm.
close to like 180-ish,
Yeah.
170. Did you lose weight when you came home, or did that?
Yes.
Okay,
It was always situational. I came back and I would get back on my regular and it would just, fall off. Right. So I always knew like that I could do it and that my body could do it because of that. And But my body is like a easy gainer, which is great for bodybuilding when you're particular about like what you're eating and you're so
Yeah,
dialed in. Because then like I gain muscle very easily, and that's great for the sport, right?
right.
But otherwise, if you're not on top of your food choices, your activity, like managing it, I need those things in order to, or else I just gain. I like
Yeah.
look at food and it's like
So you just have,
on me, you know?
yeah, yeah, kind of have a strong propensity for gaining weight. So
hmm
how long did it take you to lose the 50 pounds you gained from the mission?
Oh, it was super quick. It was like honestly, like I didn't do rapid weight loss, but I just got into my regular habits and it just like melted
Okay.
away super fast. It was just maybe in the matter of a couple months, where I was really back to my normal and I got home in the summertime.
Yeah.
And then I went back to college. And by college time, I was back down to my regular weight. Mm.
Okay. So just a couple months. Did you do
Mhm.
anything particular? So when you say back to your regular routine, what did that look like?
That daily activity, weights, workouts, cardio, and then just having access to food and being able to control my food choices. So at that point in time, I wasn't really eating like how I eat now. It was it was more of a calories in, calories out.
Mhm.
And it didn't, I didn't really learn the importance of prioritizing protein until a couple years after that. So
Yeah.
and that's really around 2007 2008 when I started to be interested in getting on stage to do at the time figure division because women's physique division did not exist.
Right.
I went to my first bodybuilding show as a spectator and I saw, wow, I saw those physiques on the stage and I said, that's what I'm trying to create. And then I said, okay, a year from today, I'm going to be on that stage. And it wound up being more like a year and a half. And then I was
And
on
so was
stage for the
that,
next contest.
so just, was that right when you got home from the mission when you were in school, or was that later on?
No, that
Okay.
was
So
later
we,
on. That was after. So I'm sorry, I jumped a bunch of years.
I
So
will.
I
I want
got,
to talk all about the bodybuilding, so we'll talk. We'll
okay,
talk all about it. I'm
okay,
excited to talk to you about it. So I'm just trying to get kind of the background so we can know
okay.
what made you get to where you're at. So you lose back down, so you're back down like the 130. You're going
hmm
through college, and then how quickly did you regain the weight going back up to like 230 ish?
it really, so 2010, I was married. I got married and I was so stressed because we had moved. I had gained again, fluctuated back up to 180.
Okay.
And then we got settled and life got settled and I was able to get back on my routine and did another show. And now this time was 2012 for women's physique division. And that was the first year it was available to compete in that division. I was very excited.
So you
And
actually competed a couple times before you got to 230 pounds then.
Yes, I got before I this last period of time that we're talking about how I
Yeah.
gained, and that was the greatest increase, and that didn't occur until after I had gotten my pro card. So I was already a bodybuilding professional and in the space of the fitness world, owning a gym, coaching people,
Yeah.
and I was obese, doing
Yeah.
it. So it's like the opposite of what you'd imagine and opposite of what you would hope for yourself. Like me, I'm like I still have all this knowledge, but it definitely is, I think, hard for someone to really, grasp what we're trying to teach them and show them if you're not also living it.
Right.
So, for me, I had prioritized everybody else over myself. And granted, there was a really big increase of responsibility that I had, that I took on, that I continue to take on, and responsibility that really belonged to other people. And that's exactly what contributed to my weight gain. And there was a lot of stress personally as well in my relationship with my husband. That I was very codependent.
Yeah.
I was an emotional eater. I didn't even eat all the time. I wasn't like having an extraneous amount of a surplus of calories. I was barely eating, but the things I would eat were like low nutrition, high calories. And And because like if it was around me, I'm the type of person that's like, I remember, even if it was put there by someone else, I remember the position exactly where it is in the cupboard, and
Gotta have
like
that
I will go
fixation
find it,
on the food.
Yeah. And so my solution for that was always to just not have it available to me, to not have it so accessible,
Yeah,
if I had to work harder and it took longer to go get that fix, then chances are it would pass before I actually fulfilled it. So that was my way of being like, okay, I can manage this, I can be successful, because that's the switch that has to happen, like I'm not going to beat myself up for not being the person that could just leave it there for 6 months and then, grab it when it's
yeah,
just a little bit. It's, like I'm not going to do that. That's just doesn't make sense to me. I'm going to just jump to what makes me successful. And
yeah.
I
So
remember
controlling your
my
food environment was a big part of it. You
Mhm.
have a really hard
Yeah,
time with like having sweets around or having whatever those low calorie, I mean high calorie, low nutritious foods around.
especially with the high stress environment, that really wasn't changing. It was like constant high stress. I was also getting like cold sore after cold sore all over my lip, up into my
Yeah,
nose, worse than I ever had in my life. And my body was just freaking out, trying to tell me, hey,
yeah.
pay attention,
Okay, so
but
to make sure I'm following along, we're on the same page. So you
yeah,
said you grew up kind of athletic. Uh,
very athletic. Yeah.
2007, you did your first show,
Hmm.
even I think another show after that.
Hmm.
And then you ran into a lot of stress in your personal life and your business, and you gained weight up to like 230 pounds. That was kind of what
Yeah, and that portion of time was like 2018 to 2020, 2021.
okay.
'Cause
So
yeah,
so you gained about a, and what was your low? Were you around 130 then when you were competing in figure, or were you lighter than that? What was your
I got to in women's physique division, so we generally have a little more muscle mass than the
right? But I thought you were
divisions.
saying that at first you
I
competed in physique and
I
figure.
did in figure, but I would get into my 130s, and then my
Okay, to
last time I
130.
competed, I was 138 on stage
Okay,
at
so
like super shredded.
yeah. So you went from about 130 all the way up to 230.
Hmm.
What did your eating look like during that time period? What was kind of the cause of the weight gain?
Oh, so yeah, I was consuming because I was just in under so much stress and very little sleep. I was regularly having 12, 14, 16-hour days. I had had an partner who was experiencing a lot of mental health and emotional health difficulties and challenges. And so I would try to take on more
Yeah,
to ease the anxiety or the stress on him. And it just took so much from me. Like the energy that I was putting into taking care of myself went away, because that's the only place, only time, only energy I had left to
right,
give. And so I was barely eating, but then I would have like, whatever was being ordered, I would just eat it, because I'm like, well, I haven't been eating, and I knew that. I was consuming so much caffeine, like multiple monsters in a day. I stopped, and I don't drink them anymore. It's a rare occasion if I ever do. Just because it was like I was feeling weird,
like
right? Like
heart
I'm like, oh, this can't be
palpitations
good.
and
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm like, ooh, when you can drink a monster right before bed and knock out, then
yeah,
it's probably time to cut back, right? So I was just doing, I was just trying to survive through that point in time. So I would, yeah, and I didn't even have much of a routine. It was just whatever was available. I know that, so if pizza was ordered, I'd have a couple, a few slices of pizza, but
yep,
I just wasn't eating, and I wasn't getting activity. So it was that combo that really
okay,
contributed, I think, to that enormous weight gain. And then over time, and it just wasn't changing. And I always believed it would. I always believed things would get better in my primary relationship, and then I could focus on myself and get back to like the balance that I'd achieved before, you
right,
know. And that's really where it was like, that's how I contributed to my own uh I mean, I was nurturing negative feedback loops and wondering why I felt like shit, like
yeah.
just
Because you're
the
basically
whole
just
thing.
putting it off. You were saying, hey,
Yeah.
like I'll take care of this later once this other thing's better.
Yeah,
And it just,
I remember telling myself over and over again, I know why this is the case. You know why you're doing this. You know why. And to me, it was a worthy sacrifice, I guess, to
yeah,
put on the altar of my relationship and everything we had built and we're striving for. I was like, I could see beyond it. And I'm like, this is just short term. But it just kept continuing. And
yeah,
I don't know, that short term, I just remember telling myself that it would get better, you know?
yeah, yeah. Well,
Mhm.
in some ways you were right because you did lose the weight. So
Yeah.
you said you got all the way up to 230. What was kind of the changing point when you hit 230 that you're like, okay, now this enough's enough and I have to change? It's like what was going on?
Well, it really was it was divorce and
Okay.
COVID happening at the same time, and just being crushed under this heavy weight of losing everything. That's really what it was. It felt like I was losing. Sorry. I've this has been like 5 years ago now, so I'm not like still in the sadness of it, but I remember feeling
It's
that
okay
way
to
of
get
like
emotional.
I
You're fine.
am. Mhm. I just remember it felt, and I believed I was losing everything. Everything I had um, justified putting all this energy into to nurture was leaving. And I begged for more of it. I begged it. I tried my hardest to keep it because um, to me, it was like I've since evolved in some of these beliefs, but at the time, I believed it was the worst thing, right, to get a divorce. I believed there, and I could still see multiple paths forward of how my partner and I could be successful and
Yeah,
get through this patch. What I couldn't see was how much he was suffering. I could see he was suffering, but I couldn't see the internal landscape, and I don't think he really understood how to express or quantify what was going on inside of
yeah,
him. And I'm just grateful because I remember hearing it, and I don't mean this to be as a bad on him. It just at the time when I heard it, it was very disruptive to me. I remember him saying, "If I stay married to you, I'm going to blow my brains out."
yeah,
And I took that harsh, like again, as another point that I was a terrible wife and just deficient in my capacity to help my partner, right? And it took me not very long after that. I went through some intense work. So I was just forced into it suddenly, right? With
yeah,
everything being stripped out of my life, I just felt like I was losing everything. It really forced me into this space of I had to focus on my healing because I didn't want to live.
yeah,
And so it was like I couldn't stay there, because I really wanted to live. What I really wanted was to not have this pain, right?
yep,
But I, through that process, was able to see pretty quickly that, oh, what he was really saying was that he gave everything he could. And after everything he could try and give, he still felt like there were only two options moving forward in regards to our relationship. And that was death or divorce. And I'm really glad he chose divorce. I thank God every day,
yeah,
that because there was some really close calls there. There was a lot of um, hard things and dark moments that happened that were really skirted the line of him not being there anymore or me not being here
yeah.
anymore.
Kind of mental
You
health
know.
crisis.
Hmm.
So you process through the divorce, and at that point you're still 230, or did you lose weight?
Hmm.
But you're kind of
I
maybe at a point
immediately.
where you're like
Oh, sorry.
rock
Sorry.
bottom. No, you're good. So maybe you're just kind of at this point where you kind of hit rock bottom. You're like, okay, now I need a fresh start, right? You're 230, you're recently divorced, and then you decide, okay, like now I need to start making a change? Is that basically what happened?
Yeah, well, I always knew, even while I was doing it, that I needed to focus on myself. I needed to get back to eating better, moving my body regularly, moving it more intensely. I needed to get back to those behaviors that I always had in my life. And this was like the period of time I just believed it was the right thing for me to sacrifice in order to carry everything else in my life. And yeah, so that's really, as much as hard as I worked and as much as I tried to hang on to all of that, it still left my life, and I was left with this big gaping hole. And I remember I was asked, because I was doing some talk therapy at the time, and which was so helpful. But then we went into COVID, and we could only do telehealth, right?
Yep.
And it still was very helpful. I needed it. It was one of the things that really helped me get back to myself. And I remember my therapist at the time asking me, what is it you want? It seems like and I've heard other
Yeah.
people go through this, and like I stopped and I was like, I had no idea. Because I hadn't asked that question in over 12 years. And I already knew I wanted to feel better. I think one of the wake up calls for me was I tried to do like this little workout. I were doing a group workout, and I was trying to do jumping jacks and like little quick feet, just like simple exercises.
Right.
And I couldn't even do them because it was hurt my feet and my ankles so bad, like sharp pain just shooting up my legs with every step. And I just, that was such a different experience to feel trapped in my body when I had a lifetime of experience of performing at an elite athlete level. I knew what my body was capable of, and that that was a wake up call. Just experiencing that inability. I did not have the capacity. I could not force it. You know, And so then I knew that I needed to move my body more. I knew I needed to get the weight off my body. I'm only 5'3". There's only so much space for that to go. Like I already had a
230 at
hard
5'3",
time.
that's a lot of,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like my arms are already T-Rex arms, and like I couldn't reach anything, like
yeah.
nothing fit. It's just, I never felt, I stopped feeling beautiful. I stopped feeling confident. I stopped in some of those ways, like I just I so I knew I had to start. So then at that point, that was the impetus of like, okay, now you can focus on yourself, because like, you just
You have more
lost
time,
270
freedom. Yep.
pounds,
Yeah.
70 pounds of your husband, and then all of the responsibility that I was taking on. Like
Yep.
I kept trying to be responsible for whatever was happening to him and whatever he was choosing and or not choosing. In addition to my own responsibilities and the whole gym community, my massage clients, my training clients, like all of them, And so suddenly that responsibility was gone. And so now I could walk again, and that's really all I could do at the time.
Was
Was just
walk.
walk. Yeah.
That's
And
where you start out. So you start out just
mhm.
walking. How far were you going?
10 minutes. I went for a time limit. I didn't even keep track of how far because it made me feel bad. Like I
Hey,
was
you got to
like,
start somewhere.
yeah, I was like, I could only do 10 minutes at a time. And I remember separating because the thing I think a lot of people go through, especially when they've been successful or they've been an athlete their entire life, or they've reached and performed at an elite level status, it's hard for them to switch thinking to a lesser capacity once they
Yeah.
start being active. So it's
Yeah.
like I noticed I was like, I'm still expecting myself to jump into this 6 days a week, um, intense weight training,
Yeah.
with cardio and being strict on my food. And I'm like, that's just not realistic, especially now with all this new responsibility. Because I kept the gym, I kept my training clients, I kept my massage clients and my massage business. I
Yeah.
was running everything now on my own, bootstrapping the whole deal, for years and years. So it's like, this is this is the component I was missing of just like taking care of myself. So now I was doing that and I had to adjust. I couldn't do the full capacity of what I was capable of when I was an elite athlete. So I had
Right.
to accept this is the question that changed it for me. It was, what can I reasonably do to build on success?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I can do, what does that look like? I could do 4 days a week of activity. And I didn't even specify what type of activity. I just needed to move my body 4 times a week. And that started at 10 minutes at a time with walks. And then eventually, as I started doing that, oh, yeah, I'm making better food choices. It's all compound, right? It wasn't never just one thing. It's, I look at activity, food, stress, and sleep. Those four things build a lifestyle. And so I was like, okay, in all of these areas, what are like 1 to 2 changes if they're needed? Because maybe
Right.
I'm already doing some good things, but what is one thing I can do? Because it's easier to add one thing than 10 things, right? And so I'm just trying to incorporate some progress here towards my goal and not let everything else fall,
Okay.
you know?
So you start out with walking. What did
Mhm.
you start out with nutrition wise as your change? How did you start changing your nutrition?
So instead of being so rigid on like a meal plan, which I had been used to doing, and I will have to do again at some point, I just looked at water intake, like increasing water intake from
Yeah.
where I was. I looked at prioritizing protein and then
So is
carbs and
that by like
fats.
grams or what were you, how did you prioritize protein? What were you
I
thinking?
didn't even have a specific number yet
You were
because,
just thinking like I want to eat the
like, if
meat
I get,
first type
yeah, hmm
thing.
every meal, every time I was eating, I was trying to get protein, like protein. Yeah. So prioritizing protein, and then with fats and carbs, if fats were high, carbs were low. If carbs were high, fats were low. They both couldn't be high because then that would
Yeah.
definitely ensure a surplus.
Yeah.
And I knew that is we just needed to be in a deficit. And right now, since my goal was just weight loss, I was just trying to reincorporate good habits and
Yeah.
being consistent with those good habits because I was, coming from this very rigid, very like, and you have to be, once you're on stage, you have to be very intentional with every morsel, every
Yeah.
intention,
Yeah.
with
Yeah. It gets
all of that.
pretty
Mhm.
crazy. So how quickly did you start losing weight when you just started applying those couple things?
Oh my heavens, like immediately started losing weight because the stress was also decreased. Even though I was going through this process of healing and that was stressful and there was a grieving process that happened, it was also a purging and I was no longer trying to hold it all in. And so that really started to change so quickly just with the consistency. It really took a matter of months. And for me to actually uh, achieve the 100-pound weight loss, though, because as I got closer to that 100-pound mark, of course, it started getting like slowing down, right? And
Right.
I don't want to lose all my muscle. That's important to
Start
me. And at a
thinking
certain
about
point
some of
in
the fine
time,
print a little bit more.
mhm.
So during that time, you said it started to slow down. Did you hit any plateaus during that time? And if so, how did you deal with that psychologically?
So a plateau hit, and at that point, I was working at a med spa. I did massage there like once a week, but I'd known the owner for quite some years, many years, and she invited me to utilize some GLP-1 that she had, and she was trying
Okay.
to promote for her med spa. So that really was the last little bit. So I had a goal of getting to 130, and the last 10 to 15 pounds were aided. I increased my intensity. I was now able to do more, so I worked harder. So I can't totally separate the intensity level from it. It wasn't just like GLP-1, but
Yeah.
it definitely wasn't a motivating factor and did kind of help boost me over that last little bit. And that was last summer around the same time. You can kind of look at a picture from last year to now, and I'm like way more shreddy.
Yeah.
and
So
and
what
it's
was your experience with
yeah.
GLP-1? Did you enjoy it? How did it feel? Do you have any side effects? What was it like?
So it is an appetite suppressant.
Right.
Definitely suppressed my appetite. And so I, especially during that, and my goal was to maintain muscle density as much as possible, not have muscle wasting. I especially was more intentional about my protein intake. And I would get like 1.6 kilograms per pound, and I would, every time I was eating, I
Grams
was
per
like
pound.
prioritizing protein. Yeah.
So you were getting a lot then. You're almost at what, 200 grams then? Something like that? 1.6 grams per pound. Is that what you just said?
Yeah, it's a kilogram, so it winds up
Okay.
being more
1.6 grams
about,
per kilo is
yeah.
okay.
So it's
That's like 100 to
about
120
a
grams.
pound. Yeah,
Yeah.
about a. I would. It's not precise, but
Yeah.
about a pound of per sorry, a gram per pound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay. So, um, do you have, you were saying mostly the reason you're keeping your protein high is for body composition
Mm.
type stuff.
Yeah, and for longevity. So muscle density is the thing that will ensure that you have good balance when you're older, that you have good bone density, that your joints move properly, your circulation is better, because in order to feed that increased muscle density, we your body creates venous pathways to transport
Right.
oxygenated red blood cells and energy and food, and
Yep.
to nutrients to that muscle so it can perform the work that you're requiring it to do.
So you're saying
It's,
muscle density. How are you measuring muscle density?
well, there's a lot of ways to do that. You could do a caliper test. You could do more
Okay, so you're saying
accurately.
like body composition when you say
Yes, body
okay.
composition. Yeah,
I
but
didn't know if
muscle
you
density. Go ahead.
I
Sorry.
just I hadn't heard people refer to as muscle density before, so I was just curious on if that was a unique term. But I think you're just referring to like body composition. Like
It's a term, a subcategory of what builds up your body composition. Is we're looking at percentage, body fat percentage, and muscle density, skeletal muscle mass. So that's muscle density, and it will show you on certain tests, and some are accurate, more accurate than others. Bod Pod and DEXA scan.
Texas.
Those are some of the more accurate measures. There's a lot of in-body tests though that are very accurate, and and it's, you got to look at the application too. Do I need to do a DEXA scan every time to show me that I'm making progress, to show me that I've had improvement? No, it's basically, this is kind of gauging if what you're doing, and we assess, and I assessed myself and I regularly to see if what I was doing was working and what direction was I going in. So one of my personal goals for bodybuilding, but also just longevity and health. I watch my parents now, and they're nearly 80 years old and cannot do things on their own, right? And I know that both of them have not been active in their life. So
Right.
what I do now ensures I will have a better quality of life as I age.
Right.
Hmm.
So you brought up you said you tracked your body composition throughout
Hmm.
most of it. Do you have body composition from when you were like 230 compared to now? What was the change
Hmm.
there?
So yeah, it was very high body fat. My muscle density, I was able to maintain a lot of my muscle mass because I'm an easy gainer, and I still worked out periodically. It wasn't like I didn't get any workouts. It just was never consistent. And at the time, I would try to do it, and I really needed a lot of encouragement from the outside to, and like, see, I'm doing good, because I was,
Yeah.
that good girl training, conditioning,
Yeah.
but I wasn't getting it. The harder I tried to receive encouragement, the less I got of it, and I actually would get the opposite. So it just was never consistent. And I know that sounds like I'm blaming someone else. It really was what I allowed in my life, right? That
Yeah.
was my power, is what I allowed. And it was part of being that codependent cycle
Yeah.
that I was nurturing in that relationship. So, um, muscle density, though, at the time, it's definitely wasn't as much as it is now. My
And
body
when you're
fat
saying muscle density, you're just saying like percentage of body
of
mass that
muscle.
is muscle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The amount of skeletal muscle mass that I
Got it.
had.
Yeah, I
But
just
I didn't.
yeah, I've never heard someone refer to as muscle density before. Sorry, that's the thing I was confused about. Muscle
Yeah.
density, yeah, keep going. Sorry,
So,
tangent. Got it. So you're
and
saying
I
you
use it a
started out,
lot. I use that term a
you
lot. And basically, what I mean, the denser you are, the leaner you can be. Like, you can't get as lean as you can't get more lean than you are dense. So like if the muscle is not there, the skeletal muscle mass isn't there. So people want their butt to look good, like girls. And if you're not going to lift, if you're not going to squat, if you're not going to do hip thrust,
Right.
then you're not building that density there, and it's only gonna,
And
it's
that's
never
just it's just
gonna
terminology you
look
say
good.
to just
Mhm.
talk to say basically how much lean mass you have, right? How much muscle mass you
Yes.
have. Okay.
Yes, exactly. And that's technical. I use that in, daily. And so it sounds a little more technical. So I'm glad that you asked for an explanation.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, muscle density I look at is a skeletal muscle mass, how much skeletal muscle mass you have. And my dipped a little bit, right? I definitely increased body fat. I had like over 50% body
Body
of
fat
my
percentage.
body was
Yeah.
body fat.
Yeah.
And I that was also an eye opener. And that's, it's easy to look at those numbers and get really neurotic about like the numbers. And oh, you know that you had a really good week, and then you get on the number and you're not seeing what you wanted to see, and so then you can have this emotional response to what you're
Right.
seeing on the scale. But that's not how I wanted to use that. I just wanted to be able to use it as just one assessment tool,
Right.
to kind of verify that this plan that I'm doing is going the right direction. And if it's not, or if it stalls or it plateaus, then we know, okay, or if it goes the opposite direction of what we want,
Yeah,
then we
you can track
can,
things as a good metric. So what
yeah.
was your total? You said you started in the 50s. What did you get down to?
So I got down to it was like 13, 14%.
Okay.
So still not standard for stage. So to be stage competitive, like the last time I was on stage, I was 8% body fat.
Okay.
And going into the pros, I would need to be leaner than that even. So my
Right, right.
density needs to be increased from there. But it's like it just that's still within essential body
That's
fat
still
for
very lean though.
women.
I mean,
It's
that's still
healthy.
for a
Yeah.
female, that's very, very lean.
It's still very lean, and but it's still healthy. Like it can be
Yeah,
managed.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you said you dipped some lean mass during it. How much lean mass did you lose during that period?
So I can't be sure without
Oh, you're
double
okay.
checking.
We don't need, if you don't
Yeah,
have the
but
numbers, we don't need to worry
it
about
was
it.
it was a matter of just like a couple pounds. It really was not very
Not a
much.
lot. Perfect.
Yeah. And some people are different because their genetics are different. That's a part of genetics: how you gain muscle, how you lose it,
Yeah,
how you gain fat, and how you lose it. Those components, like where you hold it, where you build, like all of
yeah,
that. Those components are genetic. The rest is behaviors.
yeah. Okay, so
Mhm.
let's get back to you said you started out pretty slow, just like walking and doing all that type
Mhm.
of stuff. Did your training change along that time where you started training more
Mhm.
intensely? What was that like?
Yeah, I started weight training. Once 10 minutes became 15, became 30, became like hikes because I love to hike. I always have loved to hike. And my goal was to get back to being able to hike quickly, at a pace that was challenging, and eventually getting to running that trail run. So I'm there now,
Yeah,
running the trail runs, and it just was a slow progression. But I once that started to increase, I knew my capacity was growing, and so yes, I started to be more intentional about weight training. So then I would do, okay, 4 days of activity that included weight training and hiking,
okay.
and yeah, or walking, whatever I could do
And
because
what did your weight training look like? What kind of splits were you running? What were you
yeah,
focusing on?
at that point I was doing more of a because I only had 4 days, so I do a push pull day, I do leg day, back day, and just like shoulder arm day with
Okay.
abs, and then I'd throw like abs in wherever I felt like they kind of just what didn't when I wasn't sore, right?
Yeah.
Like I just like
So
throw it in there,
take me
yeah.
through like what one of your workouts would look like then. If you're saying like, okay, like you were doing a push day or a pull day, how did you design those for yourself?
Yeah, so my capacity at the start was really slow, and so getting back into it, I knew I needed to prioritize muscle and joint stability above all else. So I wasn't too concerned about the weight loads. I wasn't too concerned about like having a huge workout as far as like sets and reps go. My volume, I wasn't so concerned about volume. I just wanted to get the habit of doing it,
Right.
and so I would do like a So, alternate between a push exercise and a pull exercise. So, presses, but my workouts when I first started were so wimpy in comparison to like what I had done before and what I
Yeah,
can even do now. So like I just was trying not to hurt myself in the process of getting back to peak condition.
yeah.
And I know it's like a little bit older than before and I was sore. I was so sore, man. So I would get my workouts done. They were more like it was timed, like so I'd do like 45 minutes to an hour, be
Uh-huh.
done with all of it. And so I'd only have like three to four exercises and about three sets each when I first started.
Got it.
So I remember feeling really accomplished when the three sets became four sets and I was just doing four sets of 10 on the alternating exercises.
Okay.
So then yeah, so that's where it started with the push pull.
So kind of moderate rep range, somewhere in like the 8 to 12 range,
Yeah, I
3 to 4
really
sets.
tried to get to 12-15 at a light load because I that's like a typical standard bodybuilding rep range, but it's also a little higher, so it forces you to kind of do lighter weights. And I didn't want
Yeah.
to get um, too zealous about jumping into heavy loads before my body could recover well
Yeah.
from it.
Makes sense. So more
Mhm.
like hypertrophy based workouts. So you, um,
But yeah, with the four sets of 10 though, I tried to get to, so I initially, yes, sorry, I said that and then it sounded,
no, you're good.
so for the first 2 weeks, it was four sets of 10.
Okay.
Once I, three sets of 10 up to four sets of 10 for another, sorry, I'm three sets of 10 for a couple weeks. Once I knew I was recovering well, it went to four sets of 10.
10.
And then after that was, okay, I'm ready to jump into 12 to 15.
Okay. And then you got up to reps in the 12 to 15 range. So,
Heaven's sakes, I need this to be written down.
and is that pretty much what you kept throughout your entire training all the way up until you got down to 130? The same type pattern?
Yeah, the same type of pattern. I just tried to be successful. And if I fell off, I would be like, okay, get back on. It's not starting over again. It's reestablishing just this consistency. That was the main thing, is just me trying to establish consistent behaviors. And it took probably 6 months to a year to be able to really have those dialed in as far as just consistent and prioritizing them, not moving them. That was the big thing for me, not moving them for other people.
Moving your exercises.
Yeah, not moving my exercise time, not moving my meal time,
Right.
not, you know, um, not sacrificing that time for myself that I needed to help someone else.
Makes sense. For a couple of months to lose
Yeah.
that last like 10, 15 pounds.
Hmm.
Um, since then, did you get off of it? Were you
Hmm.
okay? So did you regain the weight that you lost when you were off of it, or what happened there?
So I'm a little higher, about 10 pounds higher than that. 140. I've kind of fluctuate between 140, 143. That's actually a really good place for me to live. Performance wise, I feel really good
Yeah,
here and I perform well. And this is, from what I can judge, is a really good starting point for a prep going into a pro debut. Is I've never actually been as lean as I am right now starting a prep,
right.
so this is an exciting place for me. But yeah, the circling back to that question, remind me of the question again.
I was
Sorry.
saying you said you went on it, you lost about 10, 15 pounds, and you got off.
Yeah.
That's if you regained the weight.
Yeah, and that was some of that was intentional because I saw that I had muscle losses from my last show, so I already know that I have to increase muscle density for my show in the future. That doesn't mean necessarily that I have to gain on the scale a lot of weight. It's just body
Right.
composition
You just have
has
to
to
increase your
adjust a little
yeah,
bit. Yeah.
decrease your
So
body
the
fat
focus
percentage.
has to change. And I don't know how helpful GLP-1s are in that stage, right? So
Right.
I know that I needed to increase my protein intake in order to do that because you just can't grow muscle without protein,
Yeah.
specifically animal proteins are the most effective and efficient. But I knew that I had to increase. So once I increased protein and, and my appetite obviously wasn't suppressed anymore. So then I could get that protein intake. And I have been able to have more energy even for heavy lifting and
Right.
also more intense like trail runs.
Oh yeah.
So
Exercise in a
yeah,
bulk is always so much better. It's so much
yeah,
better to exercise in a caloric surplus than in a caloric deficit.
yeah.
So,
And I still feel like, there's in bodybuilding specifically, we do actually perform at very high levels in a deficit, and it's not impossible, but we're also trained to do it, and by that point in time that feels normal and my body recovers for it. And so to the
right.
average population it's going to look like overtraining. To the average population it's going to look like, oh, I'm not getting enough food, I'm eating more than any of you.
Yeah.
I promise.
Yeah. Oh no, I was just
So
saying
yeah.
training in general in a caloric
Yeah.
deficit is always more difficult than
It's so difficult. Yeah,
right.
it's
Like
much difficult.
I
Yeah.
I did MMA
Oh,
and
because
cuts for
strongman. You
years.
did
And yeah,
strongman.
like I've right, like when I was doing a cut for fighting and
Yeah.
you are without food and without water and you're still training trying to get like it's not as fun as when you're
No, it's not fun.
like compared to when I was doing strongman, it was just eat and
Yeah.
eat more, right? Like
Yeah.
so much easier to
Yeah.
just train and pick up everything. So um we talked a lot about kind of your training and body composition. You said stress was a big part of it. How were you able to navigate kind of emotional eating and move away from that?
Yeah. I recognized it at a early age, and one of the things, well, early age. I did recognize it early. Like Oprah started talking about emotional eating. I'm like, oh, I think that's me.
Yeah,
So there
like all
were.
of us.
Yeah. When I was younger, though, I honestly, I had bodybuilding wasn't so much of a focus for me. I always was moving and I was always fit and I was an athlete. And so I didn't feel like I had any disordered behaviors. In fact, my first bodybuilding show, I was encouraged to do 5 hours of cardio. What?
It's a lot of
I
cardio.
in my words I said yes because it was my first show. I didn't know what I was doing, but also I knew that was wrong. I was
Yeah,
like, I've been coached my entire life. I know what exercise anorexia looks like, and that's it. 5 hours of cardio a day.
yeah,
No. So I never did it, which is probably why I didn't get first place,
yeah,
right? But at the same time, I wasn't willing to do that to my body. The whole point of me doing bodybuilding was just a motivation for me to be consistent in my behaviors, to be healthy and to be fit,
yeah,
right? And so that to me was counterproductive. That was opposite of my goals entirely. There's so many people who would have heard that and done every little bit and hurt themselves and in the long run. So I was not willing to do that.
bring up a good topic there.
Yeah.
Anytime you
Yeah.
compete in anything, it doesn't matter what it
Mhm.
is. As soon as you're competing at any type of elite level, it's bad for you. I don't care what the sport is. Um,
Yeah, you can't
how-
maintain those extreme behaviors for very long,
yeah.
right?
So
Your kidneys only can
how do you
take so
balance
much.
that with trying to use as like a health aspect, right? Like trying to balance your health and making sure this is a long-term thing with parts of the sport that you compete in that are just unhealthy in general.
Yeah, I don't think that it will ever be the type of people. There are some people in the bodybuilding community who are like, you have to die for the sport. And I'm like, why? I want to live.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching. Sadly, we did have some problems with the rest of the file where it got corrupted and we were not able to save it. I'm very grateful for Elise and having her on the show. If you guys would like, go check out her channel. I'll have all of her stuff in the description below. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a great day.